In 2020, the United Nations turned 75. The world is very different today than it was in 1945. What will it look like in 2045 when the UN turns 100? Imagine the possibilities. How do we get there? We know the threats. Let's face them together.
It is we children and future generations that are going to suffer the most from these consequences if we fail.
Our challenges are immense. No nation can solve them alone, but together, we help. We learn, we teach, we care, we innovate.
We have the passion, the fire, and the ideas to make the change.
I am deeply convinced that there is no other way to deal with global challenges but with global responses.
All things are possible. Shared problems, shared solutions. Join the global conversation. Let's shape the future. Together.
Sustainable development can be achieved through innovations and new technologies. Particularly, innovations in sustainable chemistry offer solutions that touch every part of our daily lives and can solve global challenges. Sustainable chemistry is a transformative concept and offers a broad range of opportunities. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals call for new business models. According to the UN, they hold market opportunities in the range of $12 trillion across 60 markets. Examples of innovation fields in sustainable chemistry are materials and packaging, renewable energy and new feedstocks, and smart and eco-friendly buildings. Sustainable chemistry also is about enabling safer solutions and protecting the environment for all of us. And it helps to protect scarce resources by redesigning materials and production into circular models. Numerous founders all around the globe are solving challenges with profound know-how and innovative ideas. The startup Banyan Nation in India is working on better recycling methods as it transforms the plastic waste value chain with digital technologies.
Banyan Nation is a technology-driven company that is solving one of the most pressing issues of our time, that is plastic pollution.
Licara in Peru is creating vegan and sustainable leather for the fashion industry.
Our goal is to become an example of sustainable and eco-friendly production for other industries, applying new technology and innovation.
Innoverda reduces energy consumption and chemical waste with their flow electrosynthesis. This has the potential to replace classical chemical processes.
Our mission is to be catalyst for change for the chemical industry.
Here is where we come in. The ISC3 is a think tank, a networking platform, and international independent center. With our global startup service, the world's first program providing holistic support to sustainable chemistry-related innovators, we help startups establish and scale up their business with our expertise. We mentor innovators and provide tailored support based on their needs. Sustainable chemistry entrepreneurs develop new, better products, strive for more benign production patterns, and fulfill social, environmental, and ethical responsibilities without compromising the competitiveness of their products and services. We support creative minds in turning their ideas into sustainable solutions by investing in the future. So let's collaborate. Together, we can scale up sustainable innovation.
مشروع النمو الأخضر لإدارة المخلفات الصناعية وتشجيع الصناعات الصغيرة والمتوسطة وريادة الأعمال في مصر iWEX Project قام بتنفيذه مركز تكنولوجيا الإنتاج الأنظف تحت رعاية وزارة التجارة والصناعة بدعم وتنظيم بنك التنمية الأفريقي وتمويل صندوق التحول لدول الشرق الأوسط وشمال أفريقيا بمنحة قدرها 2 مليون دولار.
ماك بتنتج نوعية خاصة من السجاد، وهو السجاد التافتنج البرينتنج. ابتدينا نتوجه زي ما مصر كلها متوجهة إلى تكنولوجيا الأنظف للمحافظة على البيئة في مصانعنا.
في يناير 2016 استلمنا دعوة بين وزارة الصناعة لمشروع الاي ويكس، وطبعا احنا عندنا مخلفات كتيرة بتطلع من العملية الإنتاجية، أهمها أمواس الحديد اللي بنستخدمها في تقطيع السجاد، دي تقريبا 3 طن سنويا.
مصنع بوتا تم إنشاؤه سنة 1996. المصنع طبعا بيقوم بصهر مخلفات الحديد اللي هي الخردة.
التعاون بيننا وبين شركة ماك ان هم عندهم الشفرات عاوزين يتخلصوا منها كحاجة ويست عندهم يعني، واحنا بنستخدم الويست بتاعهم ده كسكراب بتاعنا كمادة خام أساسية.
بتروح لمصنع قوطة ويتم صهرها وعمل منتج جديد.
الصناعة بتعمل تحويل من شيء لشيء، فالكفاءة بتاعت التحويل عمرها ما بتبقى 100%. دايما بيطلع جزء مخلف، حتة أنا ما طلعتش عندي في المنتج، فأنا بيدخل عندي مدخلات، بتطلع عندي منتجات، ولازم يطلع عندي مخلفات.
حجم المخلفات الصناعية في مصر وصلت إلى 3 مليون طن، وتتميز المخلفات الصناعية إن هي منفصلة فيقدر التعامل معاها.
كون إن أنا قررت أرميه فبقول عليه مخلف بيديله انطباع سيء، فكان أول تحدي إن إحنا نبتدي نفكر إزاي المصانع بتتعامل مع حاجة ملهاش قيمة تترمي، في تخوف من التعامل معاها، ان ده فكره ده مورد.
المشكله الثانيه ان انا لو ما تخلصتش منه بطريقه سليمه يبقى انا ضيعت على نفسي مورد، وفي نفس الوقت عملت تلوث لو تخلصت منه في مكان مش مجهز.
مشروع الاي ويكس ممول من منحه من صندوق التحول للشرق الاوسط وشمال افريقيا، وبنك التنميه الافريقي هو اللي قائم على اشراف على اداره المنحه.
مشروع بيحقق أهداف استراتيجية وزارة التجارة للتنمية الصناعية 2020. أهم مخرجات المشروع ده هو إن قوم صناعة تدوير المخلفات الصناعية، وده اتعمل من خلال أول حاجة اتعمل دراسات مسح وحصر لجميع أنواع المخلفات الصناعية من الكميات وأنواعها، وابتدينا في 10 رمضان ثم 6 أكتوبر.
فكان من أهم الحاجات في المشروع ده إنه هيبني بورصة مخلفات بين الناس اللي بتطلع مخلفات وبين الناس اللي محتاجة تستعمل المخلفات الصناعية.
الفكرة اللي نشأت عن ذلك هو إنشاء أول موقع لتبادل المخلفات الصناعية في مصر، وهو iwexegypt.com.
وده اللي خلى المشروع صمم مبادرتين أو برنامجين للاحتضان والتدريب على ريادة الأعمال الصديقة للبيئة، بياخدوا باعتبارهم ضمان نسبة مشاركة معقولة للمرأة في البرنامجين. فمثلا برنامج الاستدامة وريادة الأعمال للشباب اللي مولوا ونفذوا برنامج إدارة المخلفات الصناعية مع مبادرة يوث جرين من جامعة القاهرة، تضمن مشاركة للسيدات الشابات من الجامعات المصرية المختلفة وصلت لنسبة 35% تقريبا، في حين إن برنامج ليها قيمة للتدريب على ريادة الأعمال تضمن حوالي 23% مشاركة للسيدات.
بنعلم الشباب ازاي انت تقدر تروح لمستثمرين تتكلم معاهم تاخد قرض تمويل ذاتي كله.
ابتدى من هنا التعاون ما بيننا وما بين اي ويكس وما بين البنك الافريقي للتنميه ان احنا نعمل سبورت بروجرام للانتربرينورز في مجال الاندستريال ويست مانجمنت. بدانا برنامج سبورت بروجرام لمجال رياده الاعمال والشركات الناشئه في قطاع المخلفات الصناعيه لمده 6 شهور. ما يبقاش ان احنا بس بنفكر في افكار كرواد اعمال بافكار من وحي خيالنا، لا هي افكار المجتمع محتاج لحلولها.
كان في مركب تاني بيتكلم على السياسات والقواعد اللي تسهل تداول المخلفات والتصنيع بتاعها،
واتشافت علاقات السياسات دي ببعضها، مين بيخدم مين الى اخره، واتعملت شبكه للسياسات دي. يبقى انا ابتدي من هنا علشان يسمع في ده عشان يعمل كده، تحط نوع من انواع الخطه لتطبيق هذه السياسات.
اللي انا شايفه ظريف جدا في المشروع ده ان هو فكره ممكن تتكرر في حاجات كتير جدا. احنا دايما بنحس ان انا عشان اتحسن محتاج موارد جديده، لكن الدرس اللي طالع من المشروع ده ان انا ممكن بمواردي القائمه اتحسن واطلع ناتج واحسن حياتي واكسب فبالتالي الحته دي بالنسبه لي شايفها تقدر تتكرر في حياتنا في حاجات كتير جدا في مصر يعني.
ترتب على المشروع العديد من النتائج الإيجابية، منها إنشاء منصة إلكترونية لتبادل المخلفات الصناعية، حيث تم تسجيل 168 شركة بها، تشجيع ريادة الأعمال في مجال المخلفات الصناعية وتوفير فرص عمل للشباب خاصة السيدات، إيجاد فرص تبادل ناجحة بين الشركات المولدة للمخلفات الصناعية وبين الشركات المنتفعة منها لاستخدامها في العملية الصناعية وإتمام العمليات التكاملية فيما بينها من خلال تنظيم ورش عمل، وذلك في الإسكندرية والسويس والمنوفية. نقل الخبرات وتبادل المعلومات في مجال إدارة المخلفات الصناعية مع الدول الإفريقية مثل السودان وجنوب أفريقيا. إعداد مذكرة بالسياسات والتوصيات اللازمة لتسهيل الاستفادة من المخلفات الصناعية ومذكرة للإطار التنظيمي للمخلفات الصناعية. الحد من الأضرار البيئية والصحية من عمليات التخلص من المخلفات الصناعية. الطريق نحو مستقبل أفضل يبدأ بالحد من تولد المخلفات وإعادة استخدامها وإعادة تدويرها.
Good morning. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to our event today. A very warm welcome to the online dialogue on promoting sustainable chemistry innovation across Egyptian small and medium enterprises. This is Abdurrahman Fahmi, Chairman of Youth in Green Egypt, and I will be your host for today's dialogue. The dialogue is in support of the celebration of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations, UN75, and it's supported and brought to you by the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center, the ISC3, the Egyptian National Cleaner Production Center, affiliated to the Ministry of Trade and Industry, ENCPC, and Youth in Green Egypt. This dialogue is part of an event. So today is an online dialogue, and on Thursday as well, we have a focused roundtable discussion, and we will talk about more about the purpose of both events very shortly. So thank you so much for tuning in. I just want to give you some highlights for today's event. So today's event will be for 1.5 hours. Please keep your mics muted, and also, if not necessary, your cameras off. And today we will be going through our agenda, and I will be sharing it very shortly also with you. Yeah, in a moment. Yeah. And today we have the pleasure to welcome international experts who will be discussing different topics. So we will be starting by brief introductions of the initiators and the organizations behind this event. Then we will be talking about the introduction to sustainable chemistry, followed by a presentation on the Egyptian roadmaps towards a bio-based economy and in the implementation of sustainable chemistry in Egypt by Professor Ahmed Gaber. And then we will be talking about the international and national best practices, and these presentations will be delivered by Niels Decker from the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center, as well as Engineering Mohammed Sabri and Engineering Dua from ENCPC, and myself. So this is our agenda for today. And the main purpose of today that the chemical industry plays a very vital role in sustainable development, but it's also on the other hand, it's consumed vast quantities of raw materials and energy, and also is contributing to a lot of pollutant releases and hazardous substances. This is why it's very important that we have a sound management of chemicals and waste treated from this industry. This is very crucial. On the other hand, the development of new innovation materials and processes offers us an opportunity for a prosperous development within our industrial sector, but also a great opportunity to increase employment and increase also the entrepreneurship promotion when it comes to sustainable innovation within the chemical industries. And for such, and actually, yeah, as Egypt, we really in a much more need to have a sustainable growth supported by also a social and environmental development on both sides. Therefore, we as a partners of this event decided to execute this online dialogue to foster the communication with different stakeholders and interested participants on how to promote innovation across the chemical industry, how to support startups who are working in the chemical industry, how the chemical industry could contribute to the sustainable development endeavor and sustainable development journey of Egypt. And in order to identify the roadmap, we need first to know who are the stakeholders, what's already being implemented on the ground, what is the Egyptian resources that we can build on, and this is very crucial, and this is one of the main things of this today event, is to identify what resources Egypt have and what is the business opportunities. And we are very lucky having Professor Ahmed Gaber, who will be highlighting this in his presentation. So in order to address these different perspectives and expectations and criteria, the ISC3, the UN75, and Youth Think Green brought to you this online dialogue, which will be followed by a focused roundtable discussion. And please, for all of the attendees, if you want to attend Thursday roundtable discussion, please let us know through emails or through the chat, and we will include you on our guest list. It will take time at the same time at 10 a.m. and will last for also 1.5 to 2 hours. So this is an introduction for today, and I hope you have a very fruitful and engaging event. And please, also, we will have a room for questions and answers towards the end of this event, so you can engage with the speakers and experts. And firstly, I would like to have the pleasure to invite Dr. Frank Fisher, the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center Project Director, to briefly introduce the ISC3 and deliver the key opening remarks of the dialogue. Over to you, Dr. Frank.
Yes, thank you, Fahmi, for the kind words. Dear friends of sustainable chemistry in Egypt, dear former colleagues in the Egypt National Cleaner Production Center, Mohamed Sabri and Doha. Thank you very much, first of all, for organizing this roundtable event. And for me, it is a pleasure to welcome you all to this roundtable on promoting sustainable chemistry for innovation across SMEs in Egypt. It is might feel a bit strange to go always online and have meetings in the virtual world, but not to be forgotten, it comes also with a little benefit. We all contribute to more climate-friendly events in this way. The IC3 was founded in May 2017 on the initiative of the German Ministry for the Environment and the German Environmental Agency. As an international hub, think tank, dialogue platform, the IC3 promotes the international breakthrough of sustainable chemistry. It is hosted by GSZ, complemented by Dechema and Leuphana University. The center supports sustainable innovations, disseminates knowledge and information, fosters research and education, and reaches out to developing countries to promote sustainable chemistry as a new holistic approach. With the ongoing support of the German Ministry for the Environment and the German Environmental Agency, the IC3 will further develop its activities in the upcoming years. It is the commitment and the dedication of Ms. Jutta Emig and her colleagues that makes the IS3 possible. And we are actually proud that we can have this support for the upcoming 4 years as well. From our dialogues with the younger generation around the globe, we have learned that particularly young chemists and scientists care more and more about sustainability. Finding the right way forward is crucial for the future of all of us. And finding the right way starts with knowledge, with science, and with awareness. We need science to lead the way forward, to lead the way towards better, more benign solutions in the chemical sector and beyond. At the IC3, we see sustainable chemistry as an important contribution to a better, more sustainable life on our blue planet. And with this roundtable, we hope to inspire you to become guardians for the future in Egypt and to a better future. With my heartfelt thanks to FAMI and the ENCPC team and all participants to this roundtable, I wish you all an inspiring and lively and successful event. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank, Dr. Frank, and it has been a pleasure actually partnering with the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center for more than a year now, and we're looking forward actually to a lot of more future collaboration. Thank you, Dr. Frank. Secondly, and I would like to invite Engineer Mohammed Sabri, the Acting Director of the Egyptian National Cleaner Production Center, to introduce to us the center and its activities and actually its contribution to the green and sustainable chemistry activities and endeavor in Egypt. Over to you, Engineer Mohammed.
أولاً صباح الخير جميعاً. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us here today. شكراً إن أنتوا يعني معانا النهاردة. النهاردة أنا هتكلم عن promoting sustainable chemistry innovation across Egyptian small medium enterprise in supporting of UN75 dialogue. احنا هنتكلم عن مركز الانتاج الانظف ساهم ازاي في topics related ل sustainable chemistry accordingly UN Sustainable Development Goals. The Egypt National Care Production Center was established in 2005 by UNIDO, close cooperation with the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Industry, the NCBC as integral part of the Egypt Industrial Council for Technology and Innovation. Furthermore, the NCBC is a part of UNIDO UNEP National Care Production Centers and the National Care Production Program Network, including the linkage with the agenda of 2030 and the fulfillment of UN Sustainable Development Goals. The center acts as a vehicle for promoting green technology transfer and innovative for the Egyptian industry. The NCBC provides technical assistance for technology transfer in the field of resource efficient industrial waste valorization, in addition of energy efficiency and renewable energy application. The NCBC is covering the following topics of activities: resource efficiency and clean production, chemical, water, raw material, and energy efficiency and industrial application of renewable energy, industrial waste management, and waste recycling. Environmentally sound technology transfer and innovation. Also, and green entrepreneur support. Next. Next. دي مجموعه بسيطه جدا من المشاريع بتاعتنا. هي انا مش هتكلم فيها طبعا عشان الوقت، بس هي النقطه كلها ان المشاريع بتاعتنا عباره عن في مجالات مختلفه بتخدم مجالات كتير جدا من الصناعه، منها الابروتش بتاع سستينبل كيمستري. نيكست. منها الويست، منها الكيميكالز، منها الانرجي، منها الكلايمت تشينج. Next. This is an important slide. It's our entity ENCBC is in numbers. Our impact, our reflecting in our market. It's for resource efficiency. We did a water saving about 2,500,000 meter cube per year. Energy saving 450 جيجا وات per year. Reduction of CO2 emission حوالي 85 طن في السنة. Solid waste reduction حوالي 15,000 طن في السنة. وحققنا annual saving حوالي 16 مليون يورو. Finally, it's been honor to be among such accomplished participants and be able to present our point of view as NCBC before you all. Thank you and good day. شكرا.
Thank you, شكرا جزيلا. Thank you, Engineer Muhammad. Actually, it has been a pleasure working with ENCPC for many years, and actually the video that we just saw before the event starts highlighted a very interesting program, which was the Industrial Waste Exchange, and proudly Youth in Green participated with ENCPC in this project, and for us it was a paradigm shift actually to work with the ENCPC and the Ministry of Trade and Industry. And hopefully also after this dialogue, we can generate a lot of partnerships with different stakeholders towards the sustainable chemistry in Egypt. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
الإيفنت part of it will be in English, part of it will be in Arabic. So يعني هنتكلم both languages. Feel free everyone to introduce yourselves in the chat. لو الناس ممكن البارتيسيبنتس معانا يكتبوا اساميهم وهم منين introduction سريعه على الشات as well. That would be great. فان to introduce yourself على الشات. And
Was ist jetzt los?
Hello.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So yeah, sorry for this. So I was just saying that also you can share your name and title. الناس ممكن تكتب هي منين على الشات participants. So in order for us to know about who is joining us. And we will be moving forward now with our presentation. So our first speaker for today, Dr. Alexis Patsanella, the co-director of the ISC3 Innovation Hub. Dr. Alexis, welcome to the event. Your talk is about the introduction of sustainable chemistry approach. And it's really very important to know what's the difference and the complementation between the green chemistry, the sustainable chemistry, and how those approaches can contribute to a more prosperous chemical industry, mainly worldwide, but mainly in Egypt. So please, over to you, Dr. Alexis.
So thank you, Fahmi, for the nice introduction. And I'm trying to do my very best to give you an introduction to sustainable chemistry and what we mean about it in just a very short time frame of 15 minutes. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, quite clearly, yeah.
Okay, very good. So sustainable, I'm trying to start with the very conventional old school chemistry. I'm a chemist by training, and if you start training in chemistry, it's all about creating new compounds, synthesis of new compounds, materials, and of course the processes leading to these compounds. And of course, this old model of chemistry is all based on a flow-through economy. So drawing some resources, transforming it into compounds, and at the end of the lifetime of the product, it's just discarded. And if you look at it, you will find that, of course, chemistry is very much upstream. So it's at the start of all value chains. And so chemicals, mixtures, and materials occur in more or less all areas of our modern life, from mobility to medicines and pharmaceuticals, energy supply, but also in electronic devices, and of course in pest control and fertilizers for agriculture, for example. So this is, so to say, the success story of chemistry, but you can also already imagine that this comes also at a certain price. So there's a downside to this, and this is actually related to the complexity also. So there has been a recent estimate that there are around 350,000 individual chemicals and mixtures around that are globally marketed. And more than 30,000 of these compounds or mixtures are environmentally relevant and harmful. So this does not even count the fate of these products in the environment. So everything that occurs due to incomplete degradation at the end of life. And of course, there's also some statistics on hazardous components and how it's related to health. So 62% of the chemical volume used in the European Union is can be considered as hazardous. And also the World Health Organization attributed 1.6 million death tolls in 2016 that are attributable to chemicals. And of course, last but not least, if you look at it, you will find more and more chemicals that can be analyzed and detected in humans or in human milk, for example. And that's of course a huge area of concern we have to address. And of course, there's another point. This is about the resources and the availability and accessibility in the long term of resources. And that, of course, is well known for the fossil feedstock, but it's also related to minerals and metals we are increasingly using in electronic devices, for example. But it's also about water, freshwater availability, and our whole environment and ecosystem, including, of course, forests. Around 20 years ago, the green chemistry framework came up. So this is again on compounds and materials and the processes. So it's related to improving the processes. It's focusing on the synthesis again, but trying to introduce strategies that produce less waste during the production, less consumption of energy, substitution of hazardous components wherever possible, and of course to use renewable resources as feedstock. But still, the green chemistry does not essentially look at the products, and also it's still based on a flow-through economy. And of course, one challenge we can see here is complexity. And this is just an example for polymers or plastics. And you can see the huge amount of plastics that are produced, and numbers are still increasing. And if we're talking about plastic, we are not talking about one single polymer. We are talking about a mixture of polymers and different monomers within one polymer with functional groups, but also a number of components in there, as fillers, plasticizers, flame retardants, and things like that. So this just shows you that we are dealing with a high level of complexity here. And the question is, what happens at the end of life with the waste? And I think you all know these pictures or similar pictures on plastic waste, plastic pollution, and microplastics in the ocean. And I think this is one of the most urgent things, along with climate change, we definitely have to address in the future with more sustainable solutions. But essentially, the same is also true for the metals. I just briefly covered that already. In electronic devices, you will find more and more metals and elements. Also, clean energy production and renewable energy production is very much based on the use of some precious metals, on some rare earth metals, for example. And if you look at your mobile phones, for example, there are more than 40 individual metals and compounds in there, showing that, of course, we have to cope with a more and more higher level of complexity in our products. And well, electronic waste is actually the most growing waste stream at the moment, with around 4% as the annual growth rate worldwide. And this, of course, is an element where the concept of circular economy comes into play. So that's now also looking at the products and the design of products. So how can we design products in a better way, so that they're easier to dismantle, for example, so that we can foresee recycling of products at the end of their lifetime. So this is a concept that is also covering some of the greener chemistry aspects, but clearly going beyond as we are looking at the products itself, and that we are looking at a circular economy here. But of course, this also comes with some challenges, and I just show you a very simple example of the different steps of a recycling concept that goes with, well, collection of waste, disassembling, processing in terms of sorting and cleaning of different waste streams, and then chemistry for conditioning of the individual streams and well, turning them into near virgin material again. And if you just assume a very high rate in each of these steps of 95%, you will still end up with short after more than 80%. And if you're looking at a more realistic percentages or shares, you will see that you're actually going very much down in terms of the efficiency of recycling. So recycling is actually something which is challenging. And from a chemist point of view, we have to deal with, of course, thermodynamics. So we will have unavoidable losses in quantity and quality of materials. So there's no such thing as upcycling in the end, and there's also no such thing as endless recycling. So circular economy is not really circular. It's more like a spiral staircase, as you see in the picture, and we can only try to get as many rounds as possible. So definitely we need to use high amounts of energy to recycle materials, to clean up materials. We have an increase of entropy. We have pollutants in there that are virtually preventing recycling at all. I showed you flame retardants, for example, in plastics material. That's something which is really preventing recycling of these materials. And of course, not all chemicals and materials can be circulated. Think about cosmetics and shampoos and things like this. So ingredients in there will just go down the drain and are lost. So there are certain limitations to the concept of recycling and circular economy as well. So the concept we're trying to promote at ISC3 is, of course, sustainable chemistry, or we would also turn it around, chemistry for sustainability. And this concept essentially looks first at what kind of services do we need and what kind of function does a product or solution need to provide. And then in the second step, we think about how can we provide this function. And the concept of chemistry for sustainability also includes, well, do we actually need certain products? Can we provide a certain function even without chemicals, or at least with less chemicals? So also looking into things like that. But it also covers aspects that are not part of green chemistry, like ethical aspects, social aspects, so workforce, can we prevent child labor and things like that, which is in particular in the metals field still a very important issue to address. So sustainable chemistry essentially looks at the whole of these circles in a very holistic way to come up with more sustainable solutions. And of course, from a technical point of view, we are starting here with, as I said, service and function, and how can we design a certain product to provide this function if we identify a function is needed. And then sustainable chemistry looks holistically at all the different steps from, of course, the resources we are using, trying to be as sustainable as possible using renewable resources, the synthesis part, but also already in the design phase, thinking about the recyclability at the end of life, taking into account that we will have entropic losses in the end, but everything which will then come up in the environment should at least then be mineralized or degradable. So this is also something we have to respect during a design phase. As such, sustainable chemistry contributes to at least 12 of the 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And it particularly addresses all, let's say, 3 layers of the cake here. So the environmental aspects, of course, societal and social aspects, but also striving for economically viable solutions. I think this is important. We can't think about innovations that support higher sustainability if they are not they're not going to show up in the market. And in the economy part, sustainable chemistry also looks at new and alternative business models, which are more service oriented. And I show a few examples here. I don't want to cover everything. Let's start with the varnishing here, for example. So it's about the concept of chemical leasing, for example. So you're not trying to sell as much varnish as possible, but you're providing a service as the chemical producer together with the downstream industries, and the payment perhaps can be as the square meter of varnished surface. Or in pest control in agriculture, not just selling as much pesticides or fertilizers as possible, but to come with a whole service system like in precision farming, where you can fine-tune what amount of pesticides, for example, do you need at which time to come up with a more sustainable solution. So very briefly, as a summary or take-home messages, we at the moment we are still in the have to cope with the old model, which is more or less based on the tonnage of products. So product and product amounts and product volumes for value creation. And I think the challenges I try to address make very clear that we need to come up to another model here. And this would be based on on knowledge and promoting service and function for value creation in the end. So if we just focus on new chemicals, materials, and products, and even on greening the production processes, it's relatively clear that this will not be enough for a sustainable future. We need this very holistic thinking, and we need to start with the design of products, and even with the question, do we really need this product? And with this, thank you very much for your attention. And I wish everyone a good event.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Alexis, for this introduction on sustainable chemistry approach. And it's really very crucial right now as an industry stakeholders to think about the transition towards a much more sustainable industry when it comes to the raw materials, when it comes to our waste management. And actually, what we need right now, and this is actually within the next presentation, to know more about the Egyptian conditions and the Egyptian resources available and the Egyptian context of the industrial sustainable chemistry. This is something that we need all to be introduced to in order to think forward about what is the opportunities for us as industry to grow, and in which areas we have potential business opportunities, in which areas we lack some resources so that we can collaborate together to make these resources available. And actually, we are very lucky today to have Professor Ahmed Gaber, Chairman of Chemonics Egypt and Professor of Chemistry at Cairo University Faculty of Engineering, be joining us today to introduce us to the Egyptian context and how Egyptian industries could draw a roadmap for integrating sustainable chemistry. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Ahmed Gaber to the event. And Professor Ahmed, over to you.
صباح الفل. I'm very happy to join this event. I'm going to focus on the Egyptian side of the story. We know that there are tremendous amount of knowledge and experience related to promotion or application of sustainable chemistry innovation worldwide. But I think the question, what's going on in Egypt, and especially that the event has mentioned, that we are talking about small, medium enterprises, entrepreneurs. Then if you go to the next slide, please. The way I look at it as a strategist, that we have means, resources. These resources we are going to talk about, but basically it is every raw material or feedstock that could be utilized to be converted via sustainable chemistry or other techniques to have products, that products has value. Then achieving the purpose, the objective at the end of the day is to achieve economic and social development. This is, to me, is the end. Or in the strategy terms, this is a strategic objective. On the other side, we have means. Means, I define it as resources, natural resources, human capital, and knowledge. Among the knowledge domains, we have sustainable chemistry. We have other domains of knowledge as well. Then if you look to the diagram, we have means as resources that we can talk about. We can even make an inventory about how many tons of natural resources like rice straw or bagasse in Egypt. And we have, on the other side, we have the ends, the objective, the strategic objective. But I think the question is of the ways, because at the beginning, I would say that our resources in Egypt are very underutilized. Then, in other words, we don't use our full resources to achieve sustainable economic and social development. And in my opinion, because we have not identified the ways to do this. If you ask yourself the question, we have entrepreneurs, startups, and we know that in the literature and worldwide experience, there are a lot of knowledge related to sustainable chemistry. But how we can bring the entrepreneurs to sustainable chemistry, to the means, so as we will have, at the end of the day, projects that can be efficient and effective. Then my presentation is in this middle box about the ways. Next slide, please. Next. Then, as my colleagues talk about sustainable chemistry, or the magic in it is the conversion. Using chemistry, we are able to convert hydrogen and nitrogen to ammonia, or we can convert bagasse to energy or to building material. Then we have A, B, C. A, the bioresources. C is the bioproducts. But of course, bioproduct means a market, a profit margin that the SME can make money and can employ people. And in between, there is this box of conversion processes that will include physical and chemical conversions that at the end of the day, we were able to make money and development, etc., etc. We talk in the area of the knowledge-based economy. And if we move to box A, which are the resources, there are many, many ways to identify the bioresources in any country or any region. I'm just giving you the example of how the Japan biomass national strategy has listed the kind of bioresources that will include the agricultural residues, the feed livestock, sewage sludge, etc., etc. And those are by itself sub-classified, and there are coding system, and there are projects have been implemented in many places in the world to have what they call biomass mapping or biomass atlas for a country or for a region. You can imagine that in East Delta or West Delta or Upper Egypt, we have a catalog or a map that in which we tell you what we have of bioresources in any region or sub-region in Egypt. These are the first box, the A. We'll go to the B. Next slide. Then we go to the conversion. In the conversion, we have technology. Technology based on chemistry, biochemistry, biotechnology. We have processes. We can have pyrolysis or gasification or transesterification or using catalysis or fermentation or so many what we call unit operations that we can use to convert the A, which I just explained, to the C. Let's go to the C. Next, the C that we are aiming to produce food. We want to produce biomaterials, oils, inks, dyes, paints, detergents, adhesives, polymers, composite materials. In the family, the carbon family, we want to produce biochar, activated carbon. We want to produce chemicals, furfural, phenols, fatty acids. It's a whole spectrum of hundreds and hundreds of products. Then the question is how in Egypt or in a region in Egypt, first we know what we have is A. Second, to know and be knowledgeable about the B, the processes. And then, of course, what will make money, that we know that there is a C, an item like an oil or a pigment or a biochar that we can make money using the technology, the know-how to convert A to C. But the question is how? The entrepreneurs are everywhere, but they don't know. They don't know how. Even they don't know that much about the A, and they don't know about the B. And of course, most probably they don't know about the C. Then we are starting with this uncertainties and level of knowledge and the level of engagement of startups, entrepreneurs. I'm not saying it is zero. I'm saying very little. It is ad hoc. It is just because 10, 20, 30, 40 entrepreneurs have been lucky to be engaged to a project. But this is not definitely on a national level what can make the difference. Let's go next slide. On the Egyptian level, I'm just giving example that in a particular location like in Aswan, we have plenty of bagasse that if we apply the right processes, maybe we can produce glass ceramic product that has an economic value. Or in Luxor, we can use a lot of the tomato residue to produce pectin or lycopene or whatever. Same thing everywhere. Then I'm saying that if you look to my model about the bioresources, the bioprocesses, the bioproducts, I think our problem is the level of knowledge and engagement that would allow that we utilize the bioresources to make money and to reach a real development. Next. The model. Next, please. Then I have a model, and this model that I will start that in any region. Let's talk about West Delta. We have bioresources. Hopefully, we can make a biomass atlas in West Delta. We have opportunities. We call opportunity mapping. This is the language of chemonics and the know-how that we have markets, we have bioproducts that if we succeed in directing the entrepreneurs to use the bioresources, make money in the market, ahlan wa sahlan. We have the entrepreneurs on the other side with their limited knowledge and very little help that they receive that they can use the opportunity. Next slide, please. We can reshuffle and order as we like, but let us go to the next slide. Next. Now, the model that it is a regional model that in each region, like West Delta, we have one, we have the bioresources, two, we have the opportunities, but we have research and institutions, we have universities, local universities that could be used. They have laboratories, they have chemistry professors, they have biotechnologists, we have established industries. And five, we have funding agencies. Funding agencies could be from UNIDO, UNDP, or from the Bank Al Ahli. These are the funding agencies that are willing to put money, seed money. So as number 6, the startups, SMEs, entrepreneurs could be equation, to go to the equation. Next, please. Something is missing. Why we don't have, like in Europe or Brazil or Argentina or in India or South Africa, we don't have that much momentum, quantum, content that the startups, SMEs are engaged in small, medium enterprises that are really productive and contributing to the bio-based economy in Egypt. The truth that we have very little. In comparing with other countries, we have very, very little. We are not utilizing our bioresources or producing. Where are we on the map of producing bioproducts and putting in the market local and international? Something is missing. Next slide, please. Is it a spark? We need a spark, a national will. Do we need an integrator? Is the missing this integrator who can integrate the 6 elements together so as we can use it effectively and efficiently to have a bio-based economy sector in Egypt? Next slide, please. I prefer to call that the missing element that we don't have a development agent. Responsible, accountable, contracted to do the job, make the linkages among the different 6 elements, so as the model will work. Next slide. This development agent that we need, and I will be honest to say, without this catalyst, the regional development agent, business will go as usual, and they will always every year will have a meeting and mention 5, 10, 20 projects or startups and quantify the increment outcome that had been achieved, but still will be very, very little. We need this regional development agent to be able to develop the opportunity map in each region, to identify the potential entrepreneurs in each region, to make the cross-linking among the universities, laboratories, industry, Bank al-Ahli, and bring them together to do something. We need this development agent has to be capable and able to provide guidance, technical assistance, share the tremendous amount of knowledge and experience in Latin America or Europe or wherever, and provide capacity building. We need this agent to be contracted. This is the role of the government, that the government will pay, contract, select, monitor the development agent on the regional level to be able to put the 6 elements together and enhance the innovation and bring in all the concepts of sustainable chemistry and put it in the equation so as we can do something of size. Next slide, please. Next. I'm just trying to tell you that we need, again, to answer the question about the ways. The ways mean the strategies. Strategy 1, for example, Egypt will decide to apply regional approach in planning and the implementation of bio-based economy. This is not my decision. This is a government decision. So far, I don't think that there is a clear policy in the government to apply the regional approach in planning for bio-based economy. Integration of our limited resources on the regional level, the 6 domains to be brought together by strategy 3, applying what I'm proposing. This is again my proposal, to have a development agent to working in each region and fulfilling the scope as mentioned in the previous slide. We have to apply and be very selective about the relevant value chains in each region. And it could be very different. Again, we need here competitiveness, and we want interlinkages, and we have the national view about which selective value chains, the value chain that will definitely position Egypt in a competitive way. To summarize, I believe that Egypt has tremendous resources, bioresources, and human capital, and access to knowledge. I believe that the objective of achieving development, sustainable development, via building a strong bio-based economy sector is clear. And I think what's missing, that to agree and refine and define the ways for achieving what I just mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ahmed, for the valuable key presentation and the valuable insights. I think also all of the participants here coming from different backgrounds, as we see in the chat. And please, if you haven't yet introduced yourself in the chat, please do so. لو ما حدش لسه عرف نفسه في الشات، لو سمحتوا نعرف نفسنا أكتر، organization والاسم. I think it's very crucial also to have discussion fostered between different key players. We have entrepreneurs, we have governmental bodies, we have public private bodies as well. So I think the roundtable on Thursday will be the room for us all to bring a discussion among all the stakeholders to identify what roles can each stakeholder play, and in what region can every stakeholder focus on. The same as Professor Ahmed said, we need a development agent supported by different resources, whether funding mechanisms, whether knowledge, whether university. We have a lot of university professors here among the audience. So it's great to have this discussion, hopefully on Thursday. But also, if you have any questions, we will have a Q&A session towards the end of the event where you can direct questions to any of our esteemed speakers. And I hope to see you all on Thursday to discuss deeper the ways on how to proceed promoting the bio-based and sustainable chemistry approaches within the Egyptian industry. So for us right now, I think we need to know more about some international and local examples about sustainable chemistry success stories, whether from abroad or here in Egypt. And this will be covered by my colleagues. So first, I would like to invite Niels Dekker, project coordinator on the ISC3 Innovation Hub. And he's working with the Global Startup Service Program and working with different startups across different regions. So Niels, please, if you can introduce us to much more international examples and success stories within the IC3 network on integrating sustainable chemistries within their economies. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you also to the other speakers and to Professor Ahmed Gaber for his very inspiring presentation. It is now really my idea in the next 10 minutes to briefly give you some further inspirations and further ideas for discussions. So this is basically today the informative session where we will try to give you some, let's say, inspiration and food of thoughts, and then feel free to discuss and be inspired and to think about what could be improved or how the ways in the end to speak in the language of Professor Ahmed Gaber could be the right and turned into the right strategies and then bring the right end towards the Egyptian economy. So I will share my screen right now on my presentation. And it is split into two parts. It is basically starting, and I hope you can see it now, with a short introduction of business opportunities. And so the second part then will be on some instruments and international examples. So the whole story about the sustainable chemistry innovation is that we have to understand what are actually some key drivers to follow and to understand what are priorities among them. So to start with, you can see now that we have provided an overview of different international drivers or key drivers for economic transformation. And for example, if we talk about the bio-based economy, why do we want to push it forward, or why are there chances that the bio-based economy will become more successful than today in the future? We have different answers to this question. One is, of course, that we know the limited resources, and we have heard about the need to have a really game changer and to have a shift in our way how we produce and become dependent or no longer dependent on oil or limited resources. But there are, of course, all other drivers as well, or drivers which are connected to this. You can see on the one hand that there's a changing consumer behavior in a growing number of population. So the market will develop more and more towards those consumers who are interested in lifestyles which are in line with, let's say, positive impact for health and sustainability. Or you have the digital and the technological innovation, or you have to understand systemic changes. And my question to you would be, what do you think in terms of the chemicals market in Egypt? What do you think, what are key drivers for your country? What are your key drivers in terms of the regulatory frameworks, for example? And I will come to this in a second. So on the other hand, then I wanted to give you some opportunity just in numbers. There was a study for the CEOs of large and multinational companies, and they have provided some estimations on the growth of the sustainability market worldwide. And it is really immense. And also the interesting part is that, of course, the numbers of growth are steadily growing, not only for the circular economy, but also for the circular bioeconomy. And so the question would be now, actually, how can the Egyptian economy benefit from these developments? So what are actually also opportunities for global export, for filling this gap and contributing to these markets, which are actually growing? In terms of the regulatory framework, I have here a slide on the European regulatory framework, and there are different aspects to consider. You might be aware, for example, of several huge interventions by the European government related to REACH. The REACH is one of the, let's say, flagship programs of the chemicals policies at the European level, and it has, of course, also a relevance for the global market. But there are others. There are also the social dimension of regulatory frameworks, which are important for the future developments in terms of employment, job security, and health and safety matters. And of course, there are also the economic, let's say, regulatory framework in terms of innovation. In Europe, there's a discussion now for the big Green Deal, also in terms of COVID mitigation and, no, not mitigation, but COVID response. And so I think that the question is again, what are similar regulatory framework conditions which are important for the Egyptian market? So I think that you have, and I have seen some responses already, that there's a Green Life or Life Green program in Egypt. So how does it impact decision makers' decisions on promoting their markets towards sustainable chemistry? Then another business opportunity lies, of course, also in the growing interest of investors in this ESG and in the sustainability market. So meaning that the ESG, environmental, social, and governmental factors become more and more important. Why is it? Because as you have seen, not only the regulatory framework conditions are one reason for them, but investors have other reasons as well to think about strategies, ESG strategies, and to put them in place. And in 2018, as you can see, already more than 60% of global investors and nearly 50% of issuers had already an ESG strategy in place. So of course, the two main decision drivers for those investors are, on the one hand, the financial returns. This is just a ranking by the HSBC Bank in 2019. And of course, secondly, the tax incentives. But also, it is clear that there's global growth in sustainable investments, and everybody wants to have its share. And the top 5 reasons for them are not only to attract new talent or to have a kind of a good relationship to external stakeholders, but it's really for them also the improvement of long-term returns and also the decrease of investment risks. So there are good reasons to invest in sustainable solutions, actually. And the question is, again, why maybe this is also kind of a triggering element here. Is this an opportunity for Egypt? Because at the moment, as you can see in this circled diagrams, there's of course not so much share of African companies and African investment, but I'm sure that there's a huge, tremendous opportunity for the African market, for the Arab region, for Egypt. And so the question is how to deal with it. Then I want to keep this very short on the startups. There are in different sectors, there are successful international startups in the area of renewable energies, but also in the area of organics, agrotech. I found it also interesting, the last one here, the Weiserk, is managing urban generated organics and considering also the huge urbanization developments in big cities like in Cairo or Alexandria. Of course, I think that the whole urbanization trends provide excellent opportunities for innovators. But of course, the question is, if they have been raising successfully some money, the question is also just to have an idea, the question to you actually, what are actually the Egyptian startups relating to sustainable chemistry that have raised most funding nationwide? Of course, it might not have been this billion dollar deals, but anyway, I'm sure that there are startups, and you know them, who have been successful in first developments. Why have they been successful? How? So I think it's good to learn from best practices from at the national level, but also from international examples. And now I will come briefly to 4 different instruments that we have been stumbled upon based on our global startup service as the ISC3. So we try to promote startups at the global level in our startup services. And we have developed already different partnerships. And one partnership was an interesting instrument, I think, that is the idea of establishing industrial parks which are driven by sustainable chemistry. So a mechanism to include entrepreneurial ideas and the circular economy principle in those eco-industrial zones or industrial parks. So integrating those knowledge hubs. Also, universities can be part of such sustainable zones, industrial zones. So there's a whole concept behind it. And if time allows, or let's say, if you are interested in this, I have the right, thanks to the innovation manager from this Dutch Camelot Compass, I have some interesting insights. So I got a presentation which I'm allowed to share, but I think we do not have time right now to go into details, but still, this is how this Camelot Company looks in the Netherlands. It's a conglomerate of different industries, and they really want to put a sustainability strategy, which is actually originally plastic-based and industry, or also industry based on, let's say, old resources, which has now turned into a new modern industrial park with really some successful numbers. So the integration of entrepreneurship elements in the industrial park is actually has turned to become a very interesting approach in this specific case. Then a second instrument is to establish a national forum for chemistry innovations or for startups. And that means that it could be really relevant as we do it today, or then further on Thursday, to have established really a forum based on intersectoral and also multi-stakeholder collaboration, where you work within working groups on different topics relating to growth, innovation, and chemistry. And there's an example actually from Germany, the German Forum Startup Chemie, which is actually a project which is has on board business angels, has on board leading research institutes from Germany, the German Startup Association, high-tech venture capital funds. So they are trying to meet biannually and discuss and provide also a national database of startups and have other peer-to-peer learning elements and networking elements. So to establish something like this, or if there's something already in Egypt, could be something interesting. So just one more slide. I have also a full presentation on this Forum Startup Chemie. I think we don't have the time right now, but I'm happy to share also more information later on this Forum Startup Chemie. But here you can see, for example, that those stakeholders have built 3 different working groups, one on the founding process to help each other, one on growth, one on opportunity digitalization, to really have more support for those innovators from ideation processes at the academia level. So professors are here. I'm very happy that we have today so many different stakeholders from different areas, but then how in the end enter the exit phase, and to have this knowledge pooled together can be very helpful to become more successful in this whole process. A third idea could be the establishment of innovation calls, could be public innovation calls, could be private and public innovation calls together, also corporate challenges. So the idea that not we have just a, let's say, research-driven innovation, but a demand-driven innovation, that there are big corporates which are looking for innovative solutions, and then also mechanisms so that specific questions are solved in a kind of competitive challenge, competition, by startups or by researchers. And there's an example here, which is called Open Startups, where actually grant challenges can be, put there, and then startups can apply and deliver, depending on different challenge areas, certain, ideas, and put them and bring them into reality. There's also from Brazil an example where public money complements private investment. We are also in contact with this organization, and we try to learn also from those elements. And it would be interesting to see if there are similar approaches, which are, if this is something realistic or useful also for the Egyptian environment or not. I don't want to go into detail of how this works, but this is also a process approach, how then partners finally come together based on different stages to make such corporate challenges become a reality. And the fourth instrument is the idea of dedicated investment funds. So investment funds that are really trying to pool resource and to do de-risk investment routes. And I think this is something where the risk sharing is a very important element for investors, especially when it comes to new ideas in the sustainability area. They might feel that there's a fear that the risk is too high to go into this area. So if you have a kind of dedicated investment fund which connects different stakeholders and is also including qualified experts in this decision process, in the due diligence process to analyze investment opportunities, this could also bring new seed money or even more at later stages money to this kind of money market, which is then, if you talk in Professor Ahmed Gaber's language of the A and B and C, this is one instrument that complements and helps to speak about the ways. And the B, of course, you need this ecosystem to be further established. And I think that there are different elements relevant. And of course, there's also, again, a different process starting with the management team and the definition of the fund structure, definition of the investment strategy, then definition of exit strategies, then the fundraising and scouting, the process of due diligence, then before this is let's say this is all what is relevant before the final investment can be done. So there's also, I think, something that can be discussed if this is relevant or if this could be somehow be also brought to Egyptian realities. So, but again, I'm very happy that we have already, that we're not starting from zero. This is just some, let's say, very broad international ideas, and ownership is with you. Think Green ownership is with you, the listeners, the audience. Ownership is with the National Cleanup Production Center. And that is why I'm happy to further discuss this with you today or on Thursday. And we are really glad to have you on board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Niels. And I think also, a lot of details could be discussed during Thursday roundtable. And I would like to remind our esteemed participants that my colleague Nada already typed in the registration form for Thursday event in order to receive the Zoom link in the chat here. So please let us know if you are interested so that we can send you the invitation. Thank you so much. So now actually we want to hear more about the local examples, about the local success stories that we had when it comes to sustainable chemistry and startups. And for such, we will be having a presentation from ENCPC, the Egyptian National Cleaner Production Center, delivered by Engineering Mohammed Sabri, the acting director of the center, and also Engineering Dua, who is an senior environmental expert at the ENCPC. So please, Engineering Mohammed and Engineering Dua, if you can let us know more about the successful stories and business cases when it comes to the sustainable chemistry innovation in Egypt. Over to you.
support or with in cooperation with different funding entities. Okay.
Dua, you can continue. Sorry. If you just go to the
the slides I couldn't.
You can go through the next slide. If you go to the bottom left of the white sheet, then it goes further to the next slide, I think, because there.
Okay. So quickly, here is the contents, the main contents of the presentation. I will give you a quickly feedback about the Egyptian chemical sector in Egypt, summary on sustainable chemistry initiatives, and then I will give you a quick summary about 4 or 5, 6 initiatives in Egypt related to sustainable chemistry. At the beginning, the chemical sector in Egypt is one of the biggest industrial sectors. It's a main contributor to the national GDP. مصر فيها أكتر من تقريبا 4000 مصنع كيماويات ما بين مصانع كبيرة وميديوم وسمول انتربرايزز. السيكتور ده تقريبا فيه أكتر برضه من 350 عامل بيشتغلوا فيه. according للإحصائيات بتاعة الكيميكال اند فيرتلايزرز اكسبورت في 2019 وصل صادرات القطاع ده حوالي 5.6 مليار دولار. وده بيمثل حوالي تقريبا 22% من صادرات القطاع من اجمالي صادرات مصر. طبعا عندنا سب سيكتورز اندر الكيميكال سيكتور زي الفيرتلايزرز والبلاستيك البتروكيميكالز، كلها من القطاعات الهامه جدا وبتمثل نسبه كبيره من صادرات مصر في قطاع الكيماويات. باختصار ده جدول فيه معظم الانيشيتيفز ريليتد للسستينبل كيمستري كونسبت اللي اتطبقت خلال الفتره اللي فاتت بالتعاون مع دونرز مختلفين زي اليونيدو، جامعه ييل، الUNEP، الUNDP. في انيشيتيفز ثانيه طبعا كتير، انا يعني او احنا حاولنا بس نهايلايت الموست امبورتنت انيشيتيفز اللي كان ليها امباكت الفتره اللي فاتت وحققت بعض النجاحات. في حاجات ثانيه زي مثلا ريسبونسبل كير، اعتقد معانا مهندس عادل طه، انا شفت الاسم في البارتيسيبنتس من ايكو. يعني في مبادرات ثانيه اتنفذت في مصر من يعني عن طريق جهات ثانيه مختلفه، وكلها كانت مبادرات ناجحه وحققت نجاح كبير. اول حاجه حابه اتكلم عنها هي الجلوبال جرين كيمستري انيشيتيف. دي كانت انيشيتيف اللي قام بصياغتها هي منظمه الامم المتحده للتنميه الصناعيه اليونيدو بالتعاون مع سنتر فور جرين كيمستري اند جرين انجينيرنج ات ييل يونيفرسيتي، وبتطبق في حوالي 14 دوله من ضمنهم مصر من خلال مركز الانتاج الانظف. الانيشيتيف دي كانت يعني اعتقد من اكتر الحاجات اللي كانت ناجحه الفتره اللي فاتت في مجال الجرين كيمستري والسستينبل كيمستري. كان الهدف الاساسي منها ان يتم رفع الوعي لجميع الستيك هولدرز العاملين بمجال الكيميكالز مانجمنت، سواء كانوا اكاديميا، governmental organizations، المصانع ذات نفسها. اتعمل كذا awareness raising event بحضور عدد كبير من الاستشاريين والستيك هولدرز زي ما قلت من جميع الجهات المتخصصه بالكيميكالز مانجمنت في مصر. اتعمل كذا ايفنت لرفع الكفاءه بخصوص الجرين كيمستري، وكان الفيدباك منهم كويس جدا وكانوا انترستد في الموضوع، وخصوصا الاكاديميك سيكتور. وده ساعد البروجكت ان هو يطلع الاوتكمز بتاعته ريليتد لل الاكاديميك سيكتور. من اهم الاوتكمز اللي طلعت من البروجكت ده ان اتعمل منهج دراسي يونيفرسيتي كوريكولم مكون من 27 محاضره متقسمين على 3 سيكشنز. 27 محاضره بيغطوا كل التوبكس المتعلقه بالجرين كيمستري والسستينبل كيمستري، وموجوده على اللينك اللي انا حطاه في السلايد دون. طبعا هنشير معاكم الماتيريال بعد الايفنت. اي حد يقدر ان هو يعمل ابلود للكوريكولم كله بال 27 محاضره. والمفروض ان بالتعاون مع اليونيدو والمركز خلال الفتره اللي جايه هنحاول ان احنا ننتجريت الكوريكولم ده ان هو يبقى مناسب لتدريسه للاندر جرادويتس في الجامعات المصريه، سواء كليات علوم، كليات هندسه جامعه القاهره، واي حد متخصص بدراسه التوبكس ريليتد للكيميكالز والكيميكال اندستري والكيميكالز مانجمنت. هنحاول ان احنا نوصل لهم الكريكولم ده ان هو يتدرس عندهم بالطريقه المناسبه لكل جامعه طبعا. من الاوتكمز الثانيه للبروجكت ان اتعمل حاجه اسمها تكنولوجي كومبانديوم. يس، التكنولوجي كومبانديوم ده كان الهدف منه انه كنا عايزين نجمع كل الكيس ستاديز الريليتد للجرين كيمستري اللي اتنفذت على مستوى العالم، تبقى زي ريفرنس لاي حد حابب ان هو يعرف معلومات اكتر عن السستينبل كيمستري والابلكيشنز بقى بتاعتها في الصناعه كمان وازاي تقدر تطبق. جمعنا 150 كيس ستادي من العالم وفي كيسز من مصر موجوده في التكنولوجي كومبانديوم. تقدروا برضو تعملوا له ابلود داونلود من على اللينك اللي انا حاطاه في السلايدز. كل كيس ستادي بتحتوي على التفاصيل التكنيكال لتطبيقها، بتحتوي على الايكونوميك والانفايرمنتال بنفيتس لايتش كيس ستادي فيهم. اعتقد كان من الحاجات المهمه قوي ان هو يبقى ريفرنس للصناعه نفسها، ان هم يقدروا يتعرفوا منه على كيس ستاديز مختلفه للتطبيق عندهم. من ضمن الاكتيفيتيز اللي احنا عملناها في البروجكت سريعا عملنا دوكيومنتيشن ل2 كيس ستاديز ناجحين جدا في مصر لمصنعين كبار. مصنع فيهم TCI سنمار، المصنع ده هو مصنع كيماويات موجود في بورسعيد بينتج كيميكالز مختلفه. الكيس ستادي اللي هو عملها او البروجكت اللي هو طبقه ريليتد للسستينبل كيمستري ان المصنع بينتج البايو ايثانول من الشوجر كين مولاسز عن طريق فيرمنتيشن بروسيس، مش بيستخدم الغاز الطبيعي زي النورمال بروسيس لانتاج الايثانول. وبالتالي هو من البايو ايثانول اللي بينتجه من الفيرمنتيشن بروسيس للشوجر كين بيقدر ينتج جرين ايثايلين بيدخل في عمليات انتاج الBVC في المصنع. دي كانت واحده من انجح الكيسز اللي بتطبق الكونسبت بتاع الجرين كيمستري او السستينبل كيمستري. عندنا كيس ستادي ثانيه لشركه تجدد. تجدد تعتبر من انجح الستارت ابس اللي اشتغلوا في مصر الفتره اللي فاتت. البروجكت بتاعهم ان هم بيشتغلوا على البرودكشن للبايو ديزل من الكوكينج اويل، يوزد كوكينج اويل. الشركه ابتدت في سنه 2013 وعندهم دلوقتي برودكشن فاسيلتي في 6 اكتوبر بينتجوا حوالي 5 طن في اليوم من البايو ديزل. زي ما كلنا عارفين ان ممكن تكون اكبر المشاكل اللي بتواجه شركات الويست ريسايكلينج هي عمليات الكولكشن. الحلو قوي في الكيس ستادي دول ان هم قدروا يعملوا سيستم ناجح جدا لتجميع اليوزد كوكينج اويل من ديفرنت سورسز، من الاوتيلات، من المطاعم، من المنازل. يعني كانوا عندهم سيستم قوي جدا لتجميع اليوزد كوكينج اويل، بيجمعوا حوالي 130 طن في الشهر. ده كان بالنسبه للمشروع بتاع الجرين كيمستري، والمشروع ده خلاص خلص تنفيذه في مصر، ولكن الاوت كامز اللي انا لسه شارحاها دلوقتي مكمله معانا الفتره اللي جايه بمور يعني امبلمنتيشن، وممكن ان احنا ازاي نستفيد منها الفتره اللي جايه. المشروع الثاني اللي هتكلم عنه سريعا هو الانوفيتيف ابروتشز فور ذا ساوند مانجمنت اوف كيميكالز، وهو كان جوينت يونيدو UNAP بروجكت، وكان من خلال البروجرام بتاع الريسب او ريسورس افشنسي والكلينر برودكشن للترانزيشن كانتريز. المين تارجت او المين ابروتش بتاع البروجكت ان هو كان عايز يشتغل على 3 حاجات. جزء انفايرمنتالي، طبعا التارجت بتاعنا مصانع الكيماويات بكل السب سيكتورز بتاعتها. كان في جزء انفايرمنتال، الشغل على تقليل الاميشنز، تقليل الويست، جزء متعلق بالوركرز هيلث، وده عن طريق تقليل الخطر وتقليل الامراض اللي ممكن يتعرض لها اي عامل في المصانع الكيماويه. وثالث محور البروجكت ده اشتغل عليه هو تحقيق ايكونوميك بنفيتس عن طريق الريسورس برودكتيفيتي والبوسيبل بوسيبلي بيتر برودكت كواليتي. وده كان عن طريق، يعني هم قالوا ان الثلاث محاور دول ممكن يتنفذوا عن طريق كذا ابروتش، من ضمنها ان هو ان احنا نطبق نيو انوفيتيف بزنس موديلز، او ان احنا نعمل امبروفمنت للمانجمنت، وكمان ان احنا نركز على السبلاي تشين في الكيميكال اندستري. لو ركزنا على المحاور دي نقدر ان احنا نحقق الابروتش بتاع البروجكت. ده كان بيتطبق من خلال تول كيت. في اتعمل تول كيت عن طريق اليونيدو اسمها ايامك تول كيت، وبرده اللينك بتاعها زي ما هو موجود عندكم قدامكم في السلايد، تقدروا تطلعوا عليه. في معلومات كتيره جدا عن الكيميكال سيكتور، ميجرز ايه هي اكتر ميجرز متعلقه بالكيميكالز مانجمنت اللي ممكن تطبق في مصانع الكيماويات. والتول كيت دي ساعدتنا جدا ان احنا نقدر نعمل فول اوديت لمصانع الكيماويات، نقدر نحدد فين الريسك، فين الهوت سبوتس، ونقدر ان احنا جنريت ميجرز تقدر المصانع تطبقها للتحسين من ادائهم. التول كيت دي اتدرب عليها او اتطبقت في اكتر من 50 مصنع في مصر، بالاضافه كمان لان هي ساعدنا المركز عندنا ساعد اكتر من 4 دول افريقيه وعربيه ان هم يطبقوا برضو التول كيت دي عندهم في مصانع للكيماويات في حوالي 20 مصنع. من الانشيتيفز اللي اشتغلنا عليها مع اليونيدو الفتره اللي فاتت كانت انشيتيف عن الكيميكال ليزنج. هي باختصار كونسبت جديد اليونيدو عمله زي بزنس موديل، نيو بزنس موديل، طريقه تعامل جديده بين السبلاير واليوزرز للكيميكالز. ان انا بشفت من ان انا مجرد سبلاير ببيع كيماويات لليوزر، لان انا ببيع له خدمه، مش مجرد ببيع له كيماويات هو بيستخدمها وممكن يبقى فيه ميس مانجمنت عنده، ممكن يبقى عنده مشاكل تتسبب في هدر او فقد في الطاقه. لا، انا ببيع له خدمه. يعني بمثال بسيط قوي، لو انا عندي مصنع وعندي فيه محطه معالجه ميه، بدل ما انا اشتري كيماويات من مصنع بيبيع لي الكيماويات دي واخدها وانا اللي ابقى مسؤول عن عمليات المعالجه ويحصل فيها هدر بنسبه كبيره، لا، انا بشتري خدمه معالجه الكيماويات من السبلاير بتاعي، هو اللي بيبقى مسؤول عن عمليات المعالجه وتوريد الكيماويات اللي هو هيستخدمها في المعالجه. وفي الاخر هو مش بيحاسبني على كميه كيماويات قد ايه هو بحالي، هو بيحاسبني على كام متر مكعب ميه هو عالجهولي. فهو باختصار ده الكونسبت بتاع الكيميكال ليزنج. من خلال اليونيدو بالتعاون معانا في خلال اخر 10 سنين الموديل ده اتطبق يمكن في اكتر من 30 شركه ما بين سبلايرز ويوزرز، وحقق سيفنجز كبيره جدا على مستوى شركات الكيماويات اللي اتطبق فيها. وصلت لسيفنج يمكن اكتر من 15 او 20% من استهلاك الكيماويات في المصانع دي. وده الويب سايت بتاع الانشيتيف دي لو حد حابب ان هو يقرا معلومات اكتر عنها. اخر بروجكت هتكلم عنه هو كان الكويك ستارت بروجرام او الاسسمنت اند كاباسيتي بيلدينج ان كيميكالز اند كيميكال ويست مانجمنت ان ايجيبت. كان بالتعاون مع اليونيدو، وده كان جزء من الفريم وورك للجلوبال انيشيتيف للاستراتيجيك ابروتش تو انترناشونال كيميكالز مانجمنت او اللي هي السايكم انيشيتيف. والمين اوتبوت اللي طلعت من البروجكت ده ان اتعمل فول اسسمنت لاكثر من 20 مصنع في مجال الكيماويات، اتعمل لهم انفنتوري لكل الكيميكالز اللي بيستخدموها وتحديد للهازارد وللريسك الناتج من المصانع دي. اتعمل مساعده اكتر لاربع مصانع لايدنتيفاي والمابنج للزير كيميكالز هوت سبوت، واتدربوا على تول كيت اسمها ريسبونسبل برودكشن. دي برضو كانت تول كيت شبه التول كيت اللي انا كنت بشرحها في البروجكت الثاني بتاع الانوفيتيف كيميكال سوليوشنز. الريسبونسبل برودكشن تول كيت برضو اللينك بتاعها موجود في السلايد لو حد حابب ان هو يطلع اكتر على التول كيت دي، متعلقه بالكيميكالز مانجمنت وفيها ميجرز كتير قوي يقدر يطبقها مصانع الكيماويات لتقليل الهازارد والريسك. اتدرب اكتر من 300 اكسبرت على السستينبل كيميكالز مانجمنت براكتسز. اتعمل ديفلوبمنت لبرنسبلز جايد لاينز للكيميكالز والكيميكالز ويست مانجمنت. اتعمل ديفلوبمنت لبيزك انفنتوري للكيميكالز في منطقتين صناعيتين، كانت مدينه السادات ومدينه 6 اكتوبر. واتعمل بيزك جاب اناليسيس فور تكنولوجيز يوزد فور كيميكالز اند كيميكالز ويست مانجمنت في المنطقتين الصناعيتين دول برضو. انا باختصار اتكلمت عن معظم البروجكت او الانشيتيفز ريليتد للسستينبل كيمستري اللي احنا نفذناها من خلال المركز، وزميلي مهندس محمد صبري هيتكلم على 2 انشيتيفز تانيين.
بالنسبه للسلايد دي ان احنا مش بنعتبرها انيشيتيف على قد ما بنعتبرها ان هي تولز هتساعدنا او مخرجات من مشاريع نقدر نطوعها لخدمه الابروتش بتاع السستينبل كيمستري. ان احنا لقينا ان وبالذات الليفل بتاع الانتربرينور او الستارت اب، احنا لقينا ان عندنا كميه داتا من مشروع الاي او اكس. احنا اخترنا 3 كومبوننت من البروجكت اوتبوت من المشروع اللي هو الاندستريال ويست مابينج، وده اتعمل في مدينتين صناعيتين ل 6 اكتوبر وال10 من رمضان. اتعمل لاكثر من حوالي الاثنين مع بعض حوالي 1000 مصنع، منهم 255 مصنع في مجال الكيماويات بمختلف شعابها. فلقينا كميات الويست اللي طالعه منها ممكن تساعد او ممكن يبقى ده البيز اللي يبدا بيه لو هشتغل على الليفل بتاع الستارت اب او الانتربرينور، ان هو يبقى عنده ولو فيجر الويست المتاحه ايه اللي موجود، لان المابينج ده كان من ضمن النتائج او الداتا اللي طالعه منه ان معروف التايب، معروف الكوانتيتي، معروف الكميه الافيلبل للتداول، معروف طريقه الديسبوزل، محطوط بوتنشال لليوز للويست ده. تاني حاجه ان احنا لقينا ان من مخرجات طبعا المشروع ان في بلاتفورم ويست اكسشينج بلاتفورم. لقينا برضو ان ممكن الانتربرينور او الستارت اب ممكن يستفيد من حاجه زي كده، انه يقدر يتابع حركه التداول بالنسبه لكان باير او سيلر لنوع معين من الويست انه ممكن يستخدمه. تاني حاجه ان احنا بنسبورت من مخرجات المشروع برضو 2 انكيوبيتور، او بنعتبرهم 2 جرين انكيوبيتور. اول انكيوبيتور دي هتبقى موجوده، دي اتعملت كلوز كوبريشن مع الجامعه التكنولوجيه، انها مينلي متخصصه في الاجريكلتشر ويست، ودي يقدر يتعامل فيها انه يقدر يعمل تيستنج، برضه يقدر يعمل بروتوتايبنج للفكره بتاعته. تاني حاجه الانكيوبيتور الثانيه اللي هي الهب في العاشر من رمضان، ودي برضو يقدر يعمل تيستنج ويقدر يعمل بروتوتايبنج للفكره بتاعته. تمام. بالنسبه للجزء الثاني هو الريتش، برضو بنعتبرها تول مش انيشيتيف اكتر، لانها بتساعدنا في فهم السبستنس اللي احنا بنستخدمها. الريتش هو عباره عن ايه؟ هو عباره عن registration, evaluation, authorization and restriction of chemicals، وده legislation European legislation of chemicals، ودي دخلت الخدمه في الاتحاد الاوروبي من 2007. فاحنا بنتشرف ان احنا اول مركز في NCBC's نتوركس على مستوى العالم، ان احنا الوحيدين اللي بنقدم الخدمه دي. الموضوع ببساطه جدا ان الريتش ده لما الاتحاد الاوروبي اوجده، كان السلوجن اللي احنا كاتبينه فوق ده اللي هو نو داتا نو ماركت. الاتحاد الاوروبي كان عنده مشكله كبيره جدا، انه كان في 2007 كان ما عندوش غير داتا بيز غير حوالي 3500 ماده كيميائيه. اما حاليا بعد 2018 اللي هو اخر ديدلاين للريجستريشن في الاتحاد الاوروبي، كان وصل حوالي اكثر من 45000 ماده كيميائيه معروفه بالسبيكس بتاعتها، بالكاركترايزيشن بتاعتها، بكل ما يتعلق عليها من اناليسيس. فبالتالي بقى ريفلكت علينا احنا كنون يوروبيان كانتريز، انه ابتدى يلزمنا بحاجات بتتوافق مع القوانين المتبعه حاليا. بقى بيلزمني سيلف داتا شيت ابجريدنج، بقى بيلزمني ب ريستريكشن في بعض الكيميكالز بيعمل لها اليمينيشن، ودي المرحله اللي احنا فيها حاليا، الاثورايزيشن ريستريكشن. وده ريفلكت على الانوفيشن في ايه؟ انه بيقدر زي ما الاتحاد الاوروبي عمل ريستريكشن لماده كيميائيه معينه، بيقدر يقول لي السبستيوشن بتاعها ايه. ده في حد ذاته ان هو خلى ان الانوفيشن بروسيس في الكيميكالز بقى لها فتره عاليه شويه بسبب موضوع الريتش. احنا كاين سي بي سي احنا سجلنا حوالي 90 شركه في مصر من 2007 حتى وقتنا هذا. احنا عندنا حوالي الداتا بيز بتاعتنا في السبستنس على مستوى الشركات المصدره للاتحاد الاوروبي حوالي 1060 ماده كيميائيه، منهم 53 ماده ريجستر. تاني حاجه ودي كانت المهمه جدا اللي هي السي ال بي، كلاسيفيكيشن ليبلنج اند باكجينج. ده دايركتيف من الليجيسليشن بتاعه الريتش عشان يعملوا انتجريشن للسيستم كله، عشان يقدر لما يجي يوصل للايفالويشن والاوثرايزيشن والريستريكشن لازم يكون عنده سيستم ازاي يكلاسيفاي يليبل يباكج الماده اللي جايه له في الاتحاد الاوروبي، لان المين الاساسي دي الريتش هو هيومن بروتكشن. ودي كانت بعض الحاجات، او دي نبذه بسيطه جدا عن الشغل اللي احنا بنعمله. احنا طبعا دي سلايد واحده، لكن لو اتكلمنا اكتر من كده احنا في حاجات كتير جدا يعني. وانا اي هوب ان احنا نكون قدرنا نوصل المعلومه بصوره كويسه. اي هوب ان احنا نكون في الفتره اللي جايه نقدر نساعد اكتر، نقدر تستفيدوا من خبراتنا اكتر. احنا كل اللي احنا قلناه ده ما هو الا سلايد او 2 سلايدز للاكسبيرينس اللي عندنا. احنا عندنا اكتر من كده بكتير. احنا عندنا تولز نقدر نتعامل معاها بصوره اكبر من كده، نقدر نفيد السوق، نقدر نفيد الابروش بطريقه اكبر. والميزه كمان ان احنا عندنا ان احنا governmental institution، لكن عندنا كميه داتابيس كبيره جدا. وانا متشكر جدا ليكم النهارده، ويا رب نكون يعني قدرنا نوصل المعلومه بشكل كويس.
شكرا جزيلا باشمهندس محمد صبري وباشمهندسه دعاء على البرزنتيشن القيمه. I think now we are a little bit over time, but we can also have some questions from the audience before we wrap up our first dialogue. And definitely, we will be having much more further discussion on Thursday, and much more elaborative work on Thursday. Thank you so much. So if there is any questions, please write them in the chat, and then to whom you would like to direct this question, and we will also direct them to our speakers. And also don't forget that if you want to attend Thursday, you can register through the link that my colleague just pasted in the chat. So let us see. Yeah. So can you share the presentations? Definitely we can do this. So we will just have هناخد إذن ال speakers وإن شاء الله نشare the presentations after this event right away. Other questions? Waiting for questions. Yes, link. Thank you, Niels. Link for registration for Thursday. So just to give you also, maybe I can go a little bit with overview about what we went through today. إيه اللي حصل النهاردة بشكل عام. We were introduced first to the 3 organizations, or the 2 organizations. Unfortunately, I didn't introduce Youth Think Green, but I can introduce Youth Think Green in the next event. We also get introduction about sustainable chemistry and how it is different than the business as usual within the old chemical approaches. Then we had a very precious input from Professor Ahmed Gaber about the ways and the strategies of converting our resources into a bioproducts that has a lot of markets, and especially with the huge potential that we have. And Professor Ahmed also highlighted the development agents that we need, and the role essentially played by those development agents. And here, inshallah, on Thursday, we will be talking about respective organizations. We have people from academia, we have people from the Environmental Compliance Office for the Federation of Egyptian Industries, we have people from the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we have entrepreneurs on board. We have here a couple of entrepreneurs that Youth Think Green proudly also worked with. Chemical entrepreneurs. So we will be talking about how we can link all of this together, and who will act as a development agent and who should act as a development agent to promote the bio-based economy across different regions in Egypt. So we have here a question from Summer, and I have an ESRT project based on treating wastewater treatment using microalgae. How I can apply this in reality according to the Egyptian regime. This is the water company refused to apply through ASRT, approve it. Okay, so can Engineer Mohammed Sabri or Dua, please can you guide Summer if there is to answer her question, if you know, because I know that you have worked with ASRT in a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah. So Summer, maybe we can get in touch with you and Engineer Mohammed.
Yes, Abdulrahman. I would like to ask Summer to send her contact. We will get in contact with her. We already have communication with ASRT, and we can link between them in the future. And I think we need to know more details. So please send us your contact information, and I will get contact you after the event.
Thank you, Dua, Engineering Dua, for that support. Any other questions? Yes. So we have a question also that I received for IC3. Yeah. So in your experience in other emerging countries, and how feasible could be to implement some of these instruments to promote sustainable chemistry? So maybe if Niels or Dr. Alexis or Dr. Frank would like to answer this question. So is there any other experience for ISC3 in another emerging countries, and how was that experience? Easy, difficult, and what is the key success aspects that you have identified in these emerging countries, which is similarly like Egypt as well?
Yes, thank you very much for the question. I think there are different positive examples, certainly, and on the one hand, it's good to share these ideas. On the other hand, every country has its specific, let's say, ecosystem, and it's very important to create own ideas and projects. And we have to be very careful when we compare what has been working in other surroundings, and if it's really then also works in Egypt. There's, of course, a very important factor is the policy environment. What I can give you as a positive example is actually what we are doing right now is a webinar series in Uruguay. Uruguay is, let's say, a smaller country in Latin America. It's trying to work as a kind of satellite to promote the concept of sustainable chemistry in the region. And actually the government is very proactively trying to establish now some kind of programs and projects relating to the concept of sustainable chemistry. They are also interested in setting up kind of a government-led initiative and a fund. So, and another example is in Chile, that there is a startup. Chile is an incubator, a very large incubator, one of the largest one in the Americas region, which is actually supported or government affiliated, and this national fund supports on a very strategic, let's say, level, connects and promotes startups in this, let's say, also to overcome this valley of death. So I think the mechanism again is here that you need the support of policy makers and then the actors from the business and the private sector. So that is very important. If you look into other regions, I think there are again interesting examples also in the African region, but still, and also in the Asian region, like in India and in the Philippines. What I think is often the case is that it's really driven by catastrophe, and I think it would be nice if people are acting, let's say, a little bit more preventive. If you see now how much international support is going into the Asian region because of the plastic waste problem, for example, in this Indonesia, Philippine regions, then it's already catastrophe management. I would like to see projects, me personally, in Egypt, which are not catastrophe driven, because there is a big catastrophe and you have to react, but which is preventive and which is forward looking, which is strategic, and which goes into the direction of, let's say, progressive and wealth related. That would be my wish for projects in Egypt and for strategy actually on sustainable chemistry.
Yeah, thank you, Niels. And speaking of policy, also I received another question that is directed to Professor Ahmed Gaber, if he can support in answering the question. So Professor Ahmed, the question was about, is the government willing in a way, or is there a policy supporting the transformation toward a bio-based economy or sustainable chemistry? If yes, then and if no, then how we can influence the government to adopt such policy?
Okay. Before answering this question, I wish to share a thought, because some way in the presentations and discussion, I think we mixed it between two main fields. The first is related to governance of chemicals, which is a main concern worldwide. Many of the projects that have been mentioned by the Cleaner Technology Center that are really great, but they are in this category that for safe handling of chemicals and safe use and safe production and certification and etc., etc. This is one field and very important, but again, it helps to minimize the risk of managing chemicals in all the supply chain and value chain. The second is what I personally talked about, and I think to a great extent Niels talked about, which is to direct and utilize the knowledge of sustainable chemistry to make development, to produce products, to enhance the capabilities of entrepreneurs, producing specialty chemicals or producing any material in an innovative way, utilizing the bioresources. And I wish when we talk Thursday, we either say or indicate that our interest is in the field of chemical
Okay, I think we lost Professor Ahmed Kaber. So but I think we got his message, actually, this clear distinction between the two different fields, and I think his wish to further consider what are actually the directions we would like to discuss on Thursday are actually very, very important.
I thought that my self dropped, so I think maybe we can wait a couple of seconds again for him. But yeah, I think this is also a good approach to summarize our event today. So also it's good to know that there's two different approaches. They are complementary, absolutely, but each have its own strategies and its own potential. And I think on Thursday we will have much more broader discussion about supporting the ecosystem and within the sustainable chemistry innovation in Egypt. So I don't know, Professor Ahmed, are you back? I don't know.
Still unmuted. I think you are there, but you are muted still, Professor
Yes.
Kaber. And we got actually very much of your last speech.
Okay.
We listened to basically all until you said your recommendations for Thursday.
Yes. Okay. Then my the answer to the question that yes, the government has indicated that they will issue or help in issuing green bonds, which is a major thing. Right now, my team and myself who are working very hard to finish the first national bio-based economy strategy for Egypt. And what I hinted in my presentation is part of the strategy. The strategy is very comprehensive and of course it starts with biomass mapping and the opportunity mapping along the lines I mentioned. Then the answer is yes, the government is interested in supporting to have a bio-based economy sector in Egypt. But we are in the very beginning. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Gibb. And I think we are lucky to have this discussion while Your Excellency and the team is preparing this national strategy, so that also you can include some ideas or stakeholders from this dialogue and on Thursday as well. So I think all of the stakeholders here and the attendees are interested to participate. And if in a way this strategy is aligned with, or we are aligned with the strategy and vision, then we will be able to have a grounded policy support from the government side, which is very essential, additional to definitely the research and the funding mechanisms and different opportunities. So I think we can conclude this for today. Thank you so much, our esteemed guests and speakers. And I would like to thank Dr. Frank Fisher, the project director of the International Sustainable Chemistry Collaborative Center, for your valuable contribution. Thank you, Dr. Alexis Patsinella, the co-director of the ISC3 Innovation Hub. And thank you, Professor Ahmed Gaber, Chairman of Chemonics and Professor of Chemical Engineering at Cairo University. Thank you so much for your valuable input. Thank you so much, Engineer Mohammed Sabri, the Acting Director of the Egyptian National Cleaner Production Center. Thank you, Engineer Dua, Senior Environmental Specialist at UN75. And also thank you so much, definitely last but not least, Niels Decker, Innovation Specialist by the ISC3 Innovation Hub. And we are looking forward, thank you to the participants, and we are looking forward to have you all on Thursday. So Thursday will be more of a breakout session. So we'll have a general meeting room, اجتماع على Zoom, and then we will have breakout sessions, different groups. Together we will discuss different topics and then set some recommendations and road mapping. And we do hope that this engagement will offer us a clearer vision about the role that each stakeholder can play in supporting sustainable chemistry innovation in Egypt. So thank you so much. We are a little bit over time, but it was a really very fruitful discussion. And thank you so much from my side, Abdurrahman Fahmi, on behalf of Youth in Green, and looking forward to meet all of you on Thursday.